So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today's Tuesday, April the 19th, 2022. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581 and press 1. And that puts you into queue to talk to us, comments and questions, because that makes this your show. And the new app with the corrections has been submitted to Google, so that update will probably be available within another day. We're still working on the Apple version of it. And the change that's being made is that when we made revisions to the commitment, we had the wrong version on the app. So we made a change so that it actually just will send you, when you click on the commitments, it will send you to our website to get the most recent version. And that way, future changes, I can just change it on the website and I don't have to pay to have the app changed again. So that, if you have trouble getting any of the commitments downloaded, then go out and see if your update is out there and update the app, and you will be able to get the most recent versions of the commitment. And we appreciate your patience while we're getting all this done. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning to work with him and in India, and he said, not right now, he was in a meeting, so he'll probably write me during the radio show, and I'll multitask here and do him as well as listening and watching the switchboard. So, again, thank you for your patience if it takes me a minute to get back on. And we're waiting on Michael to get dialed in, and he's doing another presentation tonight to the Avison. They have a practitioners meeting tonight, and that's where doctors are going to call in. And I'm not sure if Michael's actually going to be speaking, but they're going to also be talking about the parasympathetic and the Avison. So we will have that video available on our website whenever they get it to us. And Michael's still working on the article for the Avison, and we'll have that out there sometime within the next week. So just watch for changes, and again, let me know if you find something that's not working either on the website or the app. Drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here to be part of this conversation once again as we move into deeper and deeper experiences of first century Aramaic forgiveness and an understanding of the process which is designed to take us there. I had someone who was asking me some questions about A Course in Miracles, and they wanted an explanation of the truth from A Course in Miracles. And you'll find, if you've been following along with the Course at all, that the Course says the truth cannot be spoken in words. And if you look, you see all these words, I mean, volumes and volumes and volumes of words from all kinds of teachers trying to explain an attempt to establish the truth in words, which is pretty silly. And in all of those volumes of words, relatively rarely do you ever hear any conversation about the aim of the Course. And the aim of the Course is the same exact aim as we have with this work, and that is forgiveness. So, my input to people using the Course is stop studying the Course in Miracles and learn forgiveness. There's a cool metaphor for forgiveness and a little story about Michelangelo, who's approached by an admirer who looks at the finished statue of David and just like, how did you do that? And Michelangelo replies, David was always there in the marble. I just took away everything that was not him. There's the best explanation of forgiveness that I know of, right there. To take away everything that is not who you are. If you're suffering, if you're in pain, if you're in trauma, It's because there are energetic patterns there that don't belong there. You remember the Course says your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek, find, and I'll add forgive all of the barriers within yourself which you built against it. So the task is that of doing the work of removing. Very much, if you sat and watched Michelangelo carving that statue of David, what would he say to you at some point if you said, "Oh, you should add a little piece here, you should add a little piece there"? You'd say, "Well, that's ridiculous. That's not how you do it. I can't add a piece of marble to the statue. I'm going to take away what doesn't belong." And so it is in establishing one as a human being. And the barriers that we build against experiencing ourselves as who we are things like power and conflict. Words themselves become a barrier. Strife, fear. They're all barriers that we built against understanding or experiencing the truth of who we are. And, I want to thank once again the quote that was given to us last week by our friend down under. Charlie Chaplin said, you only need power to do harm. Love is enough to do what matters. It's such a great piece of information. So our minds have been trained to give up, to refuse to even question that which we've made. And what we've made is a whole world that's based on words. And when you realize that the construct of your mind, perception, generates a whole world, and that with words you can't correct that whose error is based in words, what do you need to do? You have to get into the pattern of removal. So we want to move in the direction of exactly what the Course instructs, and that is recognize that the one thing words can do is they can give us directions. Words can't speak the truth, but they can give us instructions on how to delete or remove what never belonged from within us. So the curriculum of this work, the curriculum of Course in Miracles are identical to learn forgiveness. So rather than study the Course, let's just move in the direction of learning forgiveness. And you take a look at all the conversations going on around the Course, and I've never found anyone with all the conversation that people do have about forgiveness that has found the actual how-to of forgiveness from the Course. So to recognize that if I'm in this construct, perception, the Course says perception is a skill made up by us to take the place of what the Creator gave us in creation. If I'm trapped in that world of perception, everything based in words is from the past. The Course says in that lesson, what is the world? The Course says the world will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. That thought that we hold that's not founded in love is dressed up in 1,000 ways to make itself look important. That thought must be forgiven. And true forgiveness is removal. Now, you can say, oh, I hate it when I'm in this anger or this sadness or this fear. But then if it comes to forgiving and if it comes to removal, does the mind have an excuse? Does it dress that thought up with, but this serves me, this protects me, this takes care of me? Then that's never going to be removed. The thought that creates the world will be removed the instant that it's no longer cherished. If we'll do what it takes to do that. And it's pure projection when with words we say this or that is what causes me pain. This, whatever it is, shows me the thought with which I cause myself pain. When I hold a thought of blame, my mind turns that thought into an image, literally turns it into a projection that shows me my thought in form. And now the person that I'm blaming shows up in my mind, literally a perceptual construct. I have a picture that proves that my errant thought that's the cause of my pain is caused by you. So I now have this perceptual game going on. And when you engage in actual forgiveness, you realize that what forgiveness does is it collapses perception, collapses it in on itself, and that's what gives us access to the errant thought directly rather than projecting it into our brain's image of someone else. And when exposed to love, your thought of pain, your thought that causes your pain will be gone, will be removed. And that is forgiveness. Now, many people say, well, but I don't know what the thought is. It's unconscious. It's hidden. Every time I go into pain, I stop breathing. And I realize I'm hiding it, but I don't know how to get to it. I don't know how to figure it out. And if you try to figure it out, you're now stuck in the number one pseudo-solution of the non-being mind. If I could just figure this out. You can't figure it out, but whatever it is, you can forgive it. Truth is hidden by denial. Remember, our definition of denial is what I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's happening inside of me. My false thought causes a construct to be structured by my mind that shows me the picture that the cause of what's going on inside of me is outside of me, and I now hide from myself the real cause. So through denial, I dissociate from or I hide a piece of my own mind from myself. I must give up. I must forgive my denial, which is done by letting go of thoughts of blame, taking responsibility. So being aware at this point that forgiveness is not about the Greek trickery that if I let you off the hook, I've forgiven. Letting someone else off the hook is pardoning. To engage in actual forgiveness, one must learn that the process is totally internal, and it's about collapsing perception and freeing oneself from the constructs, the entanglements of the past. Forgiveness is liberation from the image-making capability, of the perceptual mind and all the thought disorders that underlie its function. The errant thoughts I made up along with the thought disorders I've learned from or inherited from my generations, my culture, my past. And that's what must be removed. And there is a really profoundly powerful thought that to the mind sounds ridiculous, shocking, and unwarranted, just completely ridiculous. But if you work with it, you will find it will give you access to everything that needs to be healed and will accelerate you in the direction of healing immeasurably. What's the thought? Everything that's happening inside of me is happening inside of me. Well, what do you mean, Michael? Of course, that's ridiculous. That's not going to change anything. Of course, everything that's happening inside of me is happening inside of me. But remember, I heard you say they made you angry. So there's anger happening inside of you, and you said they made you angry. So you don't believe it's happening inside of you. You believe it's coming from the outside. Everything moving within you is moving within you. When you realize that, you then have the opportunity to step inside and start to undo what needs to be undone. And of course, that takes a preparation to learn an entirely new skill, because true forgiveness doesn't look like anything you've learned from the world of perception. You know, the Course talks about the world of perception as the world of darkness rules. Nothing you've learned about forgiveness. When they told you to let somebody else off the hook, they weren't talking about forgiveness. How do you collapse perception? Again, for those who are working with the Course, remember the Course says, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And it asks you, how can you learn something so different from what you've taught yourself? What have you taught yourself? Bill made me mad. Harry made me sad. Hortense upset me. The world's been teaching you for a long time that what's happening inside of you is happening outside of you, is caused from outside of you. Everything is happening inside of you is caused from something happening inside of you. So remember the Course in that lesson, what does the world says? The world is false perception, and it has not left its source. How do you collapse perception? Well, first let's look at what it is you need to collapse. Though it appears we see a whole world outside of us, we've never seen anything with our eyes. That's a lie. Our seeing is nothing but a world constructed by our minds. Seeing happens in the mind, not the eyes. We don't see through our eyes something that happens out there. We receive information about what's happening out there that causes brain cells to fire, and according to the content stored within us, the past, the mind generates a perceptual construct called perception. And you'll remember the Course talks about how I've given this all the meaning it has for me. And if I cherish this meaning or that, then I'm not going to give it up. Even though it may be the source of my pain and trauma, right up to and including my own death. If one's living in the ego mind, no, I've got to hold on to this. I've got to prove that you're the problem in my life. I've got to prove that it's outside of me. I could never believe that it's happening inside of me. What's happening inside of you is happening inside of you. So the skill called perception is an image-making capability which the mind constructs its world to match what it's been trained through generations is familiar and seems desirable and true. Now, the only feature actually demanded by this skill is that it is familiar. Just really listen to that word familiar. It has to fit the family pattern and keep us in the role which we've been assigned. If the role we've been assigned is to be the expression of pain, to be the one controlled, that role may be painful, degrading, and abhorrent to us, but it's our role, and therefore it becomes desirable in this dream that the mind generates. The role that so many play is often totally false. It's a fraud. But having been convinced it's who we are, we accept that false identity as true. And great effort is required, or a little willingness and the tools to free ourselves from it. So the willingness and tools become the key. And the tool, again, is forgiveness. So the world that people think they see is internally generated perception. It comes complete with color and sound, emotions, a whole construct, which we then substitute for life and the actual experience of what's truly there and available for us. Now, why would anybody tolerate such a fraud? I offer it's because what I've made is more familiar. Again, take that word, familiar, family. It's something that we're tied into, and it's desirable because I made it. It's like, gee, this is my creation, and therefore, of course, it must be perfect. If you think you've got a hold of something that's perfect and true, and you're in pain, your mind is lying to you. So when we live in perception, we habitually replace the actual world, the one that, according in the Course, it says the Creator's world is the world the Creator loves. Many people working with the Course deny that a world exists at all, and that's falsity. The world we love, the one of false perception, is totally false, but the Course talks about the fact that the Creator created a world for us. Fewer aware, and even fewer will admit that everyone lives in a world, a perceptual construct of their own making, and this is the world that the Course aims forgiveness at. Now, when we talk about we must forgive, there's a little bit of a fallacy there, because the truth is you can't forgive. You and I don't have the capacity to reach into the depth of all of the energetic patterns, all of the dynamics that are going on in order to generate any one given perceptual construct. But we have a part to play in doing that in order for forgiveness to be completed. Here's what the Course in Miracles says about that. It says, your part is merely to return your thinking to the point at which the error was made. Return your mind to the point where the original thought disorder happened is the key, and that's not a function of memory. People say, well, I don't remember what it was. It's not a function of memory. It's a function of forgiveness. When you apply forgiveness, the perceptual construct of the moment will collapse in on itself and give you access, either cognitively or energetically, to the underlying energetic dynamic. And if love is conscious, active, and present, and breath is moving, then that world will be brought to the space of active love for dissolution. So again, your part, return your mind to the point at which the error was made. Doing that is not a function of memory. It's not about, I have to remember the deep, dark, dirty thing that happened to me. That model of lying on the couch for decades, searching for it. No. Returning your mind to that point is a function of forgiveness. And when you realize that you're never upset at anyone, self included, unless somebody violates a goal that you hold for them, you then realize that the goal is the key. The Course speaks about goals and says that you must become aware of the distorting power of the way you want it to be. So our offering here is that all perception, all constructs of the mind are driven by goals. Removal of a goal involved in any given false perception, and that perception collapses. So when you recognize that, goals are the key way into forgiveness, and canceling them is the how-to of forgiveness. The forgiveness process in A Course in Miracles is identical to the first century Aramaic process. In the first century, the word forgive is shebag, which literally translates to cancel. So when I'm willing to enter into and recognize that a goal that I'm holding, something I think I desperately need or desperately want, is actually the thing that's driving my pained perception, then I cancel that goal. I remove the underlying perception that has now been accessed by that process of forgiveness. Again, when I drop into, when the perception collapses in on itself, and I drop into the place where the error was made originally, and I bring active present love forward as that surfaces, then healing happens. And so this process of forgiveness has nothing to do with theology. It's the most profound psychological, physiological, energetic, and genetic truth ever presented. And as you stay connected to love, the process accelerates. And so the purpose of this show is to inspire you, to offer you the instructions on how the tool is used and what to do with it, so that any pained perception, when brought to question, can be collapsed by recognizing the goal that's behind and driving that pained construct of the mind, by canceling that goal and stepping back into that space of conscious, active, present love. And in essence, that's the long and short of forgiveness. Remember that when you hold a goal, that goal resonates content stored in your structure from the past. They're kind of like the recruiter. And if a goal recruits something based in pain, that action is what's going to give you access to and the ability to remove the root of that pain when you apply forgiveness in that situation. So if you load a goal that brings forward beliefs in the false self and things that are not based in truth, the mind will take that information and coordinate it into a structure called self. And that's the self that doesn't exist. And so in each case, I may have many different goals that are active, that contribute to my mind producing a pained construct. There may be 20, 30, 50 goals involved, and I want to, one at a time, look at each goal that relates. You know, if somebody might have a situation going on and there's anger, and there's sadness, and there's fear, and there's hatred, and there's vengeance, and there's rage. Each one of those relates to a different thought disorder, and the goal that brings those thought disorders into activity, that resonates them into activity to produce any particular pained perception, the goal must be canceled, each and every one involved. So you might do many, many worksheets, many forgiveness processes around any given pained circumstance to clean out all of the parts of the mind that are contributing to this particular pain perception. And so that's what we're here to understand. That's what we're here to support. And that's what we're here to encourage, to do ourselves, encourage everyone else to engage in. Whenever there is pain held in the mind, whenever there's something less than love held in the mind, the only purpose of life at that point is to learn forgiveness. And if you haven't noticed, life will give you all the opportunities that you need. You'd almost think that life was designed to teach us forgiveness, because life hones in on whatever we're holding that is of a dis-ease nature. And pain is simply an indicator there's something being held somewhere in the structure that is of a diseased nature. And it's an invitation to apply forgiveness to access the underlying hidden parts of the mind, the unconscious, or what in the ancient teachings was called the heart. You remember it said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. Notice it didn't say take care of the head. Take care of the heart. How do you do that? You look at what's driving the pain perception, and you shebag. In Aramaic, shebag is the word that's been translated as forgive, and it actually means to cancel. You cancel the goal that's driving that perception. And then you recognize that there may be many, many aspects to that particular pain circumstance. All of those energetic movements we call emotions that tie into any given situation. And each goal that's canceled allows another aspect of that pained perceptual construct to be accessed and healed. And when you recognize that those energetic patterns are held in your physiology, wherever they're held, when active, that part of our structure is diseased. When hidden and pressed down, we intensify the energy of the disease process that's happening in our structures. Holding an energetic pattern that does not belong is the only thing that can possibly cause you pain. I mean, short of somebody punching you in the nose, cancel the thought. And yet people have these constructs. Oh, it's this that's causing my pain. It's because you did this, you did that. I'm here, I'm there. It's the mind plays this cherished game of the problems outside of me. That's what we've been trained by 1,000 generations of deniers. Such an important thought. What's happening inside of me is happening inside of me. And when I learn that and apply that, thing changes. And so we are delighted that you're here to be part of this conversation, and we're going to invite you to be part of the conversation by pushing 1 on your phone and sharing what you think, sharing what your questions are, sharing how we can support you, what's happening in your world, how are you being impacted by this radio show, by these tools that we're presenting. If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. It's 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. If you're listening on one of those stations where we can't see you, that's how you can get into the phone queue. Just call that number. You're listening to the show. And then if you have a question, push 1. That, through the magic of technology, raises a hand in Jeannie's control panel, and she'll know you want to talk to us, and we'll have a conversation. So, if you're out there in listener land, what kind of a conversation would you like to have? It's up to you to direct where we go next. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up, or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. We have several people on the switchboard, so somebody press 1. Oh, a hand just went up. Area code 845. You are on the air. Who do we have?
You got Ralph from New York.
Man, how are you?
Hey, I'm well, and I've listened the last 2 days, and thank you for your call on Easter, and thank you for being there. And my brain is squirming and, all of that, but I've heard this all before, and I came to it, and I didn't die, and I'm really, really listening, Michael. Better than I ever did when I was in the classroom. So thank you. That's what I really wanted to say.
Well, that's cool. Sounds like you heard actually the thought that I just shared several times during the last half hour is one that kind of came out of us having our conversation on Easter, and that thought of to recognize that what's happening inside of me is happening inside of me. It's like,
yeah, I got it. I heard it.
I mean, you listen to the whole world, and the whole world's talking about you. No conversation.
Well, I'm going to get off the horn here so somebody else can talk. But thank you, Michael, and thank you, Jeannie. It was good to hear your voice.
Hey, blessings. Bye-bye. All right. So if you're out there in listener land, push 1. Let's have a conversation. How can we support you? What's on your mind? Let's reinforce, because it's a significant piece of the puzzle, the definition of denial. For those who were in my Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshops in the early days, you'll remember that I always had 3 words at the top of the board: deny, suppress, project. And it's probably, I'm not even sure how long ago now. I have to go back and probably listen to the archives. I hear a little voice. Our rain has awakened. In any event, I'd have to go back and listen to the archives to see exactly where that happened. But I was so clearly directed to delete that word suppress. When we go into denial, we do not suppress things. If we suppress them, it would be kind of like, well, you suppressed it, now you can make it available. But the replacement, the 3 words at the top of the board when I do the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop now is deny, dissociate, and project. So what I deny, in essence, I say to my mind, I know the truth is I've been through this pain 87 different times with 42 different people, but I don't want to believe that it's got anything to do with me. Now I have that thought of blame we talked about earlier. It's her that did it. It's him that did it. They did it. So now I'm in denial, and in order for my mind to be consistent, my mind has to dissociate from the content that shows me the truth that what's happening inside of me is happening inside of me. And I have to hallucinate literally a whole world. Remember the lesson, what is the world from the Course? The world is false perception. I've seen a lot of people working with Course in Miracles and, the world, the telephone poles and people and skies and trees, it's all false. We made that up. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about false perception. The creation is there for those, again, who want to say, there's no world. And listen to the Course. The Course says, the Creator's word assures us he loves the world, so it must not be the world you love. What is the world we love? The one of our own making. And so I have to dissociate from the true cause in me to build a hallucination that the problem's outside of me. And that's where people get stuck in addictions and alcohol and drugs and crazy sex and all the stuff that goes with it, in order to keep, when denial alone isn't enough, then hostility comes. Hostility is the first drug the mind uses. When hostility isn't enough, that's when people reach for their anesthetic, their opiates, their opioids, their alcohol, whatever it is. And that creates an anesthetic effect so that I can assuage my pain. The pain caused by this energetic pattern that's moving inside of me. And then I get to convince myself that this picture world, totally false. I gave my mind instructions to make it about Bill over there. And so, sure enough, I have a picture of Bill made out of my dissociated pain, and that picture proves to me that my pain's about Bill. So I have to dissociate from the truth in my own mind. And when I do that, whoever my blame thought is about, I will utilize that dissociated content to build my brain's image of them. And that's called projection. You know, the world tends to define projection as something, you know, pretending that something outside of me is not so. The denial process. And that leads us to believing this whole idea of, well, projection is thinking that it's outside of me. Projection is actually the act of taking content you've dissociated from, shears out of it, making a picture world, constructing a whole world out of that dissociated content. Now the cycle's complete. I believe it's actually outside of me, so there's nothing for me to do about it, except, well, what the heck? I'll just have another drink. Or another smoke, or another drug, or, you know, another hostility attack. You know, people think hostility is an emotion. Hostility is not an emotion. Hostility is a pure drug. It's a pure anesthetic. It's a way of not feeling what's going on inside of us. And so what we're looking to do is to understand how to collapse that whole thing. How do you do it? Well, you'll notice you've never been upset with somebody unless you have a goal for them that they're not achieving for you. You've never been upset at yourself unless you hold a goal for yourself that you're not achieving. And the forgiveness process is identical in Aramaic as it is in the Course in Miracles. In the Aramaic language, shabag means to cancel. In the Course, if I remember correctly, it's paragraph 7, workbook lesson 305. Course says, let go all the things you think you want. Your trifling treasures, that's what the Course calls a goal. Your trifling treasures put away and leave a clean and open space within your mind for healing to come. By canceling the goal, you collapse perception. Now that 9-bit space of perception is free of anything. And there's room for active present love to come forward. And when the perception collapsed in on itself, it created a pathway into the hidden dissociated part of the mind. So now you've got direct access, and you can bring that underlying energy forward in the presence of love. And what happens is it dissolves. And that is forgiveness. That's the act of forgiving. And the result is you free yourself of those energies that oftentimes are many, many, many generations old, been around for a long, long time. So how does that fit for you? Does that leave you with any questions or thoughts? If so, push 1. Let's have a conversation about it. Again, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Push 1, we're having a conversation. And we don't yet have the book study video yet. We did an awesome book study club out of London, England last week, and we're waiting for that video. We did it with a woman who was quite confused about what we were talking about with forgiveness, but we were able to just walk through step by step a worksheet. And beginning in May at 3:30 Eastern Time, the 2nd and 4th Thursday of May, we'll be doing that book study club on a regular basis. It's called Hear My Voice. It's out of London, England. It's a great group. We had people from India. We had people from Africa. We had people from all over the world. It was really sweet. We thank you, Yinka, young lady who organizes that Hear My Voice book study club. So if you're out there in listener land, we've got about 15 minutes left to have a conversation. So there's room for some deep exploration. How do we support you? What's on your mind? Come on now. If I'd been in your hometown, if I were there today and I just presented what I've presented in the last 40 minutes or so, I was in your local library, your local college or your local church, your local prison, and I'd said what I said, standing up there on a stage, and I put the microphone down and I walked down off the stage and you were in the audience, you would come over to me, right? I mean, with what I've just said, virtually everybody in the room, everybody that's listening would say, well, Michael, what about? And there'd be a refinement. Now, the refinement that your mind is interested in, I probably have never thought of. So I would appreciate the gift if you push one and telling me what it is. Ask your question. What little nuance doesn't make sense? What little piece or what big piece needs clarification? Your question will help us to go in that direction and clarify it. And the way you do that is just push one. Now, you might say, well, gee, Michael, my voice might be kind of shaky. I'm on the radio. I don't know if I can do that. Can you just make it okay if your voice is shaky? Like, so what? And go ahead and push one and ask your question. I know you've got it. I know that everybody, I mean, the amount of territory I covered in that 40 minutes, there are dozens of questions that could be asked. So how about pushing one, giving us your question, sending us in a direction. Here it is. This is the direction we're going in. Let's go for it.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a leftover from Dr. Tim's show or not, but I'm going to turn Susan's microphone back on. Hi.
Hi.
Well, hey there, young lady.
But I know how that happens. Howdy. Good to hear all this
stuff
again.
How do you be? What's exciting?
Well, I'm not too well, actually. And I think
how can we support you?
And this is something outside of me that caused my upset, Michael. And so I went off my sugar fast. I told Dr. Tim this, and he was really good. But you're the naturopath, so I went off my sugar fast, not drastically, but I had, I'm pre-diabetic just by a hair, and I don't know whether that has anything to do with it, but I had a really anxious. Yeah, well, I just thought, well, it's Easter, and I've been in solidarity with a grandson, and I said, I will stay off sugar if you stay off weed. Well, he hasn't been staying off weed, but I've been staying off my sugar. And I thought, okay, it's Easter.
Well, what the heck?
And
if he's not going to do it,
I'm paying the
not.
price.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I was just playing God's advocate. Well, if he's not going to keep up his commitment, I'm not going to keep mine.
I know, Michael. Don't rub it in.
Sure, I'll rub it in. I'm here to be truly helpful.
Right. Okay.
So what's surfacing? What's happening?
Well, I've been doing a lot of the work, but pulling out a worksheet at 2:30 in the morning, and as I said to Dr. Tim, I felt as if I was using a pea shooter against ballistic missiles. It really didn't help too much. I only had this amorphous feeling that I'm not safe, and my kids aren't safe, and nobody's safe, and we're all in up shit's creek. That's how I was feeling. And I've been struggling most of the day. Without a paddle, definitely. Without even a team paddle. Anyway, yes, these are my issues. These are the issues that I have been freed of largely by using the tools. But from the physical point of view, I undermined myself to the point where, I don't even know if it's true. I went online to see if sugar could trigger anxiety, and it said yes, it could. My question right away off the top is that true from your experience?
Well, if you remember in the intensive, we handed out a poster that spoke of the physiological effects of emotional suppression. Do you remember that poster? I'm sure Jeannie's putting a link to it in the notes as we speak. If you look at that poster, it looks at, we've identified the specific thought disorders in a general way that tie to each step down the ladder. And when you tell me that you're pre-diabetic and it involves sugar and that involves the pancreas, the thought disorders that tend to locate in the pancreas tend to be thoughts of unresolved grief. And what I hear you talking about is now, having eaten the sugar, you're in this space of now everybody's in trouble. And what are they in trouble about? It's all based in thoughts of loss. And loss, thoughts, disorders based in loss, are what generate grief. And that becomes a load on the pancreas, and the pancreas becomes dysfunctional and doesn't regulate sugar properly. I remember at Heartland, this goes back years ago, we had a young lady that was on the support team at Heartland. And, you know, in the extreme space, people who have a challenge with this particular issue with sugar and grief, that have unresolved grief, tend to need, one aspect of it can be the tendency and the need to demand their food, like, I need to eat right now. And this particular woman kind of got a reputation with everybody in the support team of, when she starts down the warpath, you know you better get food in her belly. Yeah. Or there's going to be hell to pay. She goes into that much emotional trauma. And the day that she touched into the fact that the man who she had been married to, that was just truly the love of her life, the day she touched into and processed the fact that he had been in an accident and got a blood transfusion, and as a result of that blood transfusion, he got AIDS and died, was just unbearable grief for her. And you know what? The next day, we could have starved her for 3 days, and we wouldn't have gotten that emotional trauma out of her. It was like a switch went off, and the trauma, I mean, she would just be miserable. She'd be nasty with people. She'd have this biting edge. She'd be ready to bite your head off. We never saw that behavior once the rest of that summer when she touched into and resolved that just horrendous grief and injustice at having lost her husband because he was given a blood transfusion with AIDS in it.
Awful.
So my offering would be, what I hear you saying is, there's some grief, fear of loss. You know, what would the descriptor up Schitt's Creek be except, there's loss coming, or it's here, or it's already happened. So my offering would be, there's the direction to go with your worksheets. What is it you want? You want everybody to be safe? You want the world to be a sure thing? What exactly is the goal that's going to, when you cancel it, drop you into this dissociated grief that really needs to be processed out of your body for you to be free of it? And when you do that, you metabolize sugar perfectly.
You know, Michael, I'm hearing everything that you say, and I'm going to do just what you said. But I have another question. While I have you, I want to ask this too. Is my younger sister is pre-diabetic too, and she eats nothing but junk food practically, and she is still pre-diabetic. In other words, why was it so bad that I ate a little sugar and went down the tubes? She does this, and she's not in great shape, but she can do that and remain pre-diabetic. And I just don't know the medical part of that. Why that
well,
would be.
My take would be that she doesn't have a thought disorder based in grief and loss. I don't know what she's dealing with. I don't know what, if you went and looked down that whole chart on the physiological effects of emotional suppression, where when, we're designed to live in enthusiasm. If you remember the first thing on that chart, we're designed to live in theos, which literally means in God, in love. And when we're pulled out of it, the thought disorder is usually something like, what's wrong with me? or there's something wrong with me. And when we buy into that thought disorder, then we literally start to shut down the only light-sensitive gland in the body, and that's the pineal, the master gland. We shut that pineal down, and now the rest of the thought disorders drive us down the chart till we reach death, till death occurs. It's literally a disintegration process. I don't know where on the chart. I don't know what kind of thought disorders are going on in her world. Whether it's the adrenals, whether it's what part of the endocrine system is loaded for her. But it's probably not based in grief. Therefore, the energy is probably not locking down her pancreas and its function. But when you take that lock off, when you touch into what that grief is and take that load out, and remember that the mind functions throughout every cell in the body. And so when we put a disintegrative energy, remembering in the Aramaic, the Aramaic word sin doesn't mean something terrible we've done. It simply is an archery term that means off the mark. If the energy is that of loss, that's where it tends to land, and I'd suggest that probably her energetic patterns are somewhere other than in grief. I don't know her. You know her. Do you know her well enough to know what arena her thought disorders are in?
Well, I know she's single. She has had cancer twice. She lives alone. She's a shopaholic. You talked a lot about stuff I listened to the archive last night of yesterday's show. I had to miss yesterday's show, but Dr. Tim had posted it along with his hour, and I listened to the whole thing in the middle of the night. She's very dependent on getting new stuff for herself, and she's impoverished. Tim is supporting her, and of course we're enabling her, and it's very confusing. And when she's really lucid,
has to have that dopamine hit.
Yeah, she's when she's lucid, she'll say, "Sue, I've wasted my life. She's very bright, very talented, but she basically stays in bed all day doing puzzles and watching TV. She has no strength. She's aerobic, very, it's just."
It sounds like her primary load is on the pineal. That first thought disorder that I mentioned is I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. A thought like I've wasted my life would be a reflection of that, would be my take. Just, off the bat.
Yeah.
And then, if you look at the chart, if somebody starts out with that, I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, then we lose our connection to enthusiasm, and that's painful. And what is, how many, you probably, as I can remember, when some power person said to us, "This hurts me more than it hurts you. And I'm going to give you something to cry for." What is that then?
Yeah.
What's the next step down? That's the
it.
thought disorder. I'm not even allowed to feel my pain.
Yeah. Boy, food for thought, Michael. I might have to come back to you on the radio show to go through some of this. I know it's
Let's go for it.
Hour.
Yeah, we're down to the last minute or so, but let's carry the conversation on tomorrow. Absolutely delighted to do it, young lady. Holding you in our hearts in the meantime. All right, we cherish you.
So much.
Everybody, create the best year yet of your eternal life, and we'll carry this conversation off right from the get-go tomorrow. Blessings. Bye-bye.